Welcome to session 13. The Jews accept the Messiah. What's happening on earth? Well, there's three angels are flying around just above the earth delivering three messages to mankind. The first angel delivers the everlasting gospel, preaching to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, tribe, and tongue of people. The angel is telling humanity to worship God who made the heaven and the earth and give Him the glory. The second angel announces the fall of the Babylon, the great city, because she made all the nations drink of the wine of wrath of her sexual immorality. The third angel warns mankind if they take the mark, the name, or the number of the beast, they will face punishment of hell, tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Does humanity listen? Well, some do. What's happening in heaven? Well, John witnesses two great harvests. Revelation 14 through 16 tells us about these harvests. We're going to take these a verse at a time because we have some points which you might find interesting. Let's start out with Revelation 14:14. Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and on the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, in his hand a sharp sickle. Son of Man, you immediately think Jesus Christ, but is it? The word crown here is the Greek word stephanos, like the one the 24 elders are wearing or were given. Let's look at the description of Jesus' crown when he returns with his army of white horses. His eyes were like a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. He had a name written that no one knew except himself. The Greek word here, crown, is translated diadem. Oh, and did you catch there are many diadems, not just one? The word diadem is only used 3 times in the Bible. The first, Revelation 19:12. Second, Revelation 12:3, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns, diadems, on his head. And the third, Revelation 13:1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horn 10 crowns, diadems, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. Well, my jaw was on the ground. I was expecting verses about Jesus' crown and not about the beast and Satan. But I have a couple of suggestions to offer as a solution. First, back in Exodus 39, details of the consecration of the high priest is given. During the procedure, a turban was placed on the high priest's head, and then a holy crown placed on top of the turban. Since Jesus Christ is now serving in heaven as our high priest, this crown could be part of the attire of the high priest. The word crown here is in Hebrew, so the translation's different. Second, Jesus Christ has not yet been acknowledged as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This doesn't take place until Revelation 19:16. Therefore, here, when he's seen on the cloud in Revelation 14:14, he has not yet been given his many diadem crowns. As a side note, I think the crowns are the diadems taken from Satan and the beast and returned back to the person Jesus Christ, who has the true authority and leadership over the kingdom of heaven and earth. So, let's jump back to the harvest. An angel comes from the temple and tells the one sitting on the cloud to thrust in the sickle and harvest the earth. Harvest what? We have to look at the second harvest to find out what the first harvest is. In the second harvest, we have basically the same scene with a few differences. This angel comes from God's temple and has a sickle in his hand. There's no crown mentioned. An Old Testament verse that's kind of interesting, Joel 3:13. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, go down, for the wine press is full, the vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. In Joel, we have the sickle the harvest, and the winepress, all mentioned in a verse pertaining to the two harvests. Amazing how many verses in the Old Testament and the New Testament that are prophesied and then fulfilled in the book of Revelation. The verse we need to focus on is Revelations 14:19. So the angel thrust his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. The angel is harvesting grapes. Apparently, there's millions of people who must suffer the wrath of God, for the blood which comes from the winepress is approximately 5 feet deep, flowing 184 miles. So, back to the first harvest. If this angel is harvesting bad grapes, then the first harvest must be the good grapes, thus the introduction of the next group of heavenly saints. The first harvest is completed, but we're not told where the fruit is housed. But that very next chapter, Revelations 15:2, we see another group of people, and John didn't ask where this group came from, but I think we can figure it out. Let's compare Revelations 15:2 with Revelations 14:9 through 10. The angel warned humanity about worshiping the beast, worshiping his image, and taking his mark, not to do these things, and part of humanity listened. Now let's look at 15:2. This group of saints are in heaven because they did not worship the beast or his image, nor take the mark. While we're here in Revelations 15:2, let's notice these folks are standing on the sea of glass, holding harps in their hands. Back in Revelations 4:6, we discover that the sea of glass was located before the throne of God. It seems the floor of the heavenly temple is like a crystal or transparent glass. I think of a prism producing flashes of color. Back in Daniel 6, Daniel describes God with looking like a precious gem, and his face is lightning and his eyes are like torches. This glorious light that God and the Lamb produce reflect over the floor of the temple. The only earthly thing that it could be like would be the northern lights. Just like John, it's hard to find words to describe. On to what this group is holding in their hands. God has given these saints harps, which leads me to think they're Jews. Why? Well, the harp was used by David to soothe Saul. It's played during celebrations. It's signed to the Levitical choir, used in worship to praise God, and even carried into battle. Lastly, the 144,000 who were chosen from the tribes of Israel were heard singing and playing harps. The harp was used continually through the Bible by the Jewish people. Revelations 15:3 gives us another clue. They're singing the song of Moses and the song of the Lamb. You know, Moses had two songs in which he sang. The first was in Exodus 15 at the beginning, but this song is the one at the end of Moses' life. When reading this song, it says if Moses is predicting Israel's future all the way to the end, including their time of judgment during the tribulation. This song would only make sense to the Jewish people. The other song, the Song of the Lamb, it seems to me that the Jews have finally accepted Jesus Christ as their Messiah and have chosen to worship Him. Could they have finally read the whole Bible and discovered the truth of the Messiah? It appears it might be true. One last thing for today. Remember from session 12, the 144,000 raptured to heaven, we had an unfinished fruit harvest. As a reminder, the 144,000 represented the first fruits of the grape harvest. This group of saints standing on the sea of glass with harps in their hands are the harvest of the grape, the total harvest of the grapes. This completes all three Jewish feasts or harvest. So the key points to remember for this section of group, or section for the group of people, they're standing around God's throne, carrying harps, and singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. Let's finish up with our chart work. So, erase one of the blue boxes on earth in the tribulation section. Draw a new blue box under God's throne located in the millennial section. Draw a little harp on this box so we can keep this box separated from the 144,000. just remember this blue box represents the Jews martyred during the tribulation. Draw a new box in hell. This box will represent all the supporters of Satan and the Antichrist, which are killed in the great winepress. This completes section 3, and we're going to start section 4 next week with the coming of Jesus Christ. Hope to see you then. Shalom.